Hello YouTube, Film Buffo 6 here, with a review, with hopefully a very brief review of the 2009 Oscar nominee for Best Picture, An Education, which was based on a memoir of the same name by British journalist Lynn Barber. It was written by Nick Hornby, who also wrote the best-selling novels that High Fidelity and About a Boy were based on, and it was also nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the 2010 Oscars. It was directed by Danish filmmaker Lone Scherfig, who would later go on to direct the 2011 adaptation of the David Nichols novel One Day with Anne Hathaway and Jim Sturgis, and it stars Carey Mulligan, who, as most Doctor Who fans might know, portrayed Sally Sparrow in Blink, and she was also Oscar nominated for Best Actress in a Leading Role for her breakthrough performance in this film. Also, Peter Sarsgaard, Alfred Molina, Cara Seymour, Dominic Cooper, Rosamund Pike, Emma Thompson, Olivia Williams, and Sally Hawkins. Now, An Education is set in London during the early 1960s, and is quintessentially the coming-of-age story about a bright 16-year-old schoolgirl named Jenny Mellor, played by Carey Mulligan, who lives with her small-minded parents, played by Alfred Molina and Cara Seymour, in the London suburbs, and is studying very hard to the best of her ability for an academic career at Oxford University, while simultaneously dreaming of living the high life as an escape from her drab and quite boring existence of nothing but double French, cello lessons, an inability to properly grasp Latin, if that makes any sense, and awkward dinners with her parents. But all of that changes forever for her when she encounters and eventually falls in love with a man twice her age named David Goldman, played by Peter Sarsgaard. With the naive approval of her parents, David gradually seduces and charms Jenny throughout the film by taking her out to operas, art galleries, fancy restaurants, and heck, even a birthday visit to Paris with his constant, clique of companions. comprising of his best friend Danny, played by Dominic Cooper, and his quite frankly dim girlfriend Helen, dim-witted girlfriend Helen, played by Rosamund Pike. However, it then becomes apparent that David may not be as gentlemanly as he seems to be, and as a result of this fact, Jenny finds herself torn between being with the man she loves and securing her bright future and formal education at Oxford, whilst learning important life lessons along the way. And that is it for the plot of this, and that is really it for the plot of this movie. So, what are my brief thoughts? What are my brief thoughts on an education? Well, it is a very good, very well paced, and very well made film. But to be honest, in my opinion, I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's as perfect as some might think, nor do I. It's perfect, and I genuinely do not know whether or not it deserved its nomination for Best Picture at the Oscars. I mean, the only yes, I'm sure the only reason why this film was nominated by the Academy just for the sake of, expanding the number of Best Picture nominees at that time from 5 to 10 as a response to them controversially snubbing The Dark Knight, controversially snubbing The Dark Knight for a Best Picture nomination the previous year. And that is quite understandable, I think, from a political standpoint. But yeah, I just genuinely do not know whether or not it deserved its nomination, if I'm to be perfectly honest. I'm not saying it didn't, but I'm just not entirely 100% sure. Anyways, on to the review. The story, it is good, but it's nothing new or original. And it's quite and most of the time it's quite predictable, it's pretty much the same story that we've probably seen loads and loads of times before in movies like The Graduate, in some movies like The Graduate, to name one example. The message of the movie, it's especially relevant today. It's especially relevant today, especially given the recent revelations that we've had of what quote unquote celebrities at that time like Gary Glitter, Max Clifford, Rolf Harris, and especially Jimmy Savile were really doing behind closed doors and behind closed doors and the fact that they were sexually molesting very young children at a time when child abuse amongst celebrities was pretty much ignored, and it was just widely perceived as being, just really harmless, and thank God that generation has and thank God that generation has now suffered the consequences, of covering up such a heinous act. I'm a little bit backtracking here. The soundtrack is nice, I think. The production values capture the 1960s time period extremely well. Nick Hornby's screenplay is marvellously witty, and some of the humour I felt was almost Richard Curtis-esque in its approach. Just saying. Lone Scherfig did a superb job directing this movie. The acting was superb from everyone involved. Dominic Cooper and Rosamund Pike do great jobs as the comic relief. Olivia Williams also does a great job in her role as Jenny's English literature teacher. Emma Thompson's cameo as the head mistress of Jenny's school was also great. Alfred Molina, I thought, was brilliant in his portrayal of the stereotypical, idiot dad. The highlight being his touching soliloquy in front of Jenny's door towards the end. I mean, that was just a fantastic piece of acting from him. It really was. That is how... I mean it. It really was. That is how you do a soliloquy. Peter Sarsgaard, I thought, also did a brilliant job with his role, because not only did he nail his British accent to a T in this, but he also did such a brilliant job creating this character who is kind of dodgy and devious, but at the same time you cannot help but be fascinated by because of how charming and likeable he seems to be on the surface. But the performance that steals this movie, and the one that I really personally feel should have won the Best Actress Oscar that year instead of Sandra Bullock for The Blind Side, comes from Carey freaking Mulligan. I mean, for her first major breakthrough film role, she does such a fantastic job, and her performance alone is what makes the film worth watching. Also, she almost reminded me at times of a very young Audrey Hepburn as Holly Golightly from Breakfast at Tiffany's. Heck, she even gets to sport the iconic Audrey Hepburn hairdo from that film at various points during this film. I mean, just such a fantastic performance, and was truly deserving, and she truly deserved her nomination. She truly deserved her nomination. She was absolutely fantastic. And if there is only one other complaint that I have with the film, just other than the unoriginality of the story, it would be with the ending. Not that it is as bad as some people say, but I just thought that it felt a little bit rushed, and the film seemed to resolve itself a little bit too quickly. It almost reminded me of the ending to Last Christmas, you know, the Doctor Who Christmas special from last year. Yeah. Other than that, I would recommend that you especially check out An Education for Carey Mulligan's performance alone, and don't really expect anything that you haven't seen or heard before elsewhere here. Since I don't really have an awful lot more to say about it, in conclusion, my overall rating for An Education, it's going to be a high 7 out of 10. A high 7 out of 10. As I said before, it is a good film, not perfect, but above average. Also, in my opinion, it's not really one of the worst Best Picture nominees I have seen, but it is probably one of the weakest. So, with that said, feel free to leave a comment in the section below and let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on An Education, and also what your favourite Carey Mulligan film is. Plus, feel free to subscribe to my channel as always. And until my next video, which is probably going to be a little live reaction to the upcoming exclusive Disney XD preview. For the Star Wars Rebels Season 2 premiere, The Siege of Lothal. Do take care, everyone, and goodbye.